You know, there's something they don't always tell you about retirement. Sure, it's a time to relax, to finally kick back after decades of hard work. But sometimes, when the alarm clock stops ringing and the daily routine fades away, it can leave you wondering, what now? Maybe you've felt it too. That little voice in the back of your mind asking, is this all there is? You're not alone. Retirement is a huge change, and it's natural to miss the sense of purpose that work or raising a family once gave you. But here's the good news. This next chapter can be just as fulfilling, maybe even more so, if we approach it the right way. That's what we're going to talk about today. How to find real purpose and joy in retirement. Not just passing the time, but truly thriving. And I promise it's not about doing more just for the sake of staying busy. It's about finding what lights you up inside and making the most of the freedom you've earned. So, where do we begin? Well, let's start with something simple but powerful. Reconnecting with what you love. Think back, way back, to the things that used to make your heart sing before life got so busy. Maybe it was painting, gardening, tinkering in the garage, or even just losing yourself in a good book. Retirement is the perfect time to rediscover those passions. Take my friend Martha, for example. She spent 40 years working as a nurse, always putting others first. When she retired, she felt a little lost, until she picked up a paintbrush for the first time since high school. Now, she's turned her sunroom into a studio, and her grandkids beg her to paint pictures for their rooms. It's not about being the next Picasso. It's about how it makes her feel alive, creative, happy. And that leads me to the next thing, trying something new. Maybe there's always been a little voice in your head saying, I'd love to try that someday. Well, guess what? Someday is here. Whether it's learning to play an instrument, taking a cooking class, or even writing your life story for your grandkids, retirement is your chance to explore. Now I know what some of you might be thinking. But what if I'm not good at it? Here's a little secret. It doesn't matter. This isn't about being perfect. It's about enjoying the process. My neighbor Bob decided to learn guitar at 68. He'll never play Carnegie Hall, but he gets such a kick out of strumming along to his old favorites. And that's enough. Of course, finding purpose isn't just about hobbies. It's also about connection. One of the most beautiful things we can do in retirement is share what we've learned with others. Maybe that means volunteering at the local library, mentoring young people in your field, or simply being the person who always has time to listen. I'll never forget how my old coworker Jim found new meaning after retiring. He started volunteering with a program that helps kids learn to read. At first, he wondered if he'd really make a difference. But when one little boy looked up at him after finishing his first book and said, "Mr. Jim, can we do this again tomorrow?" Well, that was all the purpose he needed. Now, I know this is a lot to think about, and we've only just scratched the surface, but here's what I want you to take away so far. Retirement isn't an ending. It's a beginning, a chance to write the next chapter exactly how you want it. Whether it's through rediscovering old passions, trying new things, or giving back, there are so many ways to fill your days with meaning. And you know what? We're just getting started. There's so much more to explore when it comes to living a retirement that's not just comfortable, but truly joyful. But for now, why not take a moment to think about what we've covered. Maybe even grab a pen and paper. What's one thing you've always wanted to try or return to? Because that, my friend, might just be the first step toward your most fulfilling years yet. You know, one of the most surprising things about retirement isn't just how much time we have. It's how quickly that time can slip away if we're not intentional about it. I've talked to so many folks who say, I thought I'd do so much more, but somehow the days just disappear. Sound familiar? Well, today we're going to talk about how to make sure those days aren't just passing by, but are truly meaningful. Because here's the truth. Purpose doesn't just happen. We have to create it. And the beautiful thing is, we get to decide what that looks like. Let's start with something that might seem small but makes a world of difference. Structure. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just retired. I don't want another schedule. But hear me out. This isn't about rigid routines or to-do lists. It's about giving your days a little shape so you don't wake up at noon wondering where the morning went. Take my cousin Ed. After he retired, he found himself drifting, sleeping in, watching TV for hours, and before he knew it, weeks had gone by without him feeling like he'd really done anything. Then he started setting just one small goal for each day. Maybe it was calling an old friend, taking a walk in the park, or finally organizing that toolbox that had been a mess for years. Nothing big, just something to give the day a little direction. And you know what? Those small wins added up. He told me, it's not about filling every minute. It's about making the minutes count. Now, let's talk about something even more important. Staying connected. Retirement can sometimes feel lonely, especially if you're used to being around coworkers or a house full of kids. But here's the thing. We're never too old to make new friends or deepen the relationships we already have. I'll never forget how my friend Louise found her way out of loneliness. She'd lost her husband a few years before retiring, and when the house got too quiet, she decided to join a weekly card game at the community center. At first, she almost didn't go. What if I don't fit in? What if they're all cliquey? But that first day, she met 3 women who'd all been in the same boat. Now, they don't just play cards. They take day trips together, swap books, and call each other just to chat. Louise says it's like having sisters she never had growing up. And that brings me to my next point, giving back. Now, I'm not talking about signing up for some huge commitment that feels like another job. It's about finding ways to share what you've learned over a lifetime. Maybe that's reading to kids at the library once a month, helping out at the food bank, or even just being the person in your neighborhood who checks in on others. There's a man in my town, Frank, who's 78 years young. Every Tuesday, he goes to the local high school and sits with students who need a little extra help with math. He was an engineer for 40 years, and now he gets to see that light bulb moment in kids' eyes when a tough problem finally makes sense. He told me, I thought I was retired from making a difference. Turns out I was just getting started. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what if my health isn't what it used to be? Here's something important to remember. Purpose doesn't have to be grand to be meaningful. Maybe your giving back is writing letters to your grandchildren, sharing family stories so they're not lost. Or perhaps it's simply being the person who always has a kind word for the cashier at the grocery store. Those small moments matter more than we realize. One last thing before we move on. Don't underestimate the power of learning. Our brains thrive when we keep them curious. And these days, you don't even have to leave home to explore something new. Ever wanted to learn about ancient Rome? There are fascinating free lectures online. Always wished you could speak a little Italian for that trip you never took. Language apps make it easier than ever. My neighbor at 82 started learning about astronomy just for fun. Now she can point out constellations to her great-grandkids, and they think she's magic. What we're really talking about here is designing a retirement that feels like yours. Not what anyone else thinks it should be, but what makes you wake up excited for the day. And the best part? There's no deadline. If something doesn't light you up, try something else. This is your time. Now we've covered a lot here, from creating gentle structure to building connections, giving back in ways that fit your life, and keeping that wonderful mind of yours curious. But there's still more to explore when it comes to crafting a retirement filled with joy. So, why not take a little time to think about what we've talked about? Maybe tonight, over a cup of tea, ask yourself, what's one small thing I could do tomorrow that would make the day feel worthwhile? Because sometimes the biggest changes start with the simplest steps. As we've been talking about retirement, I've been thinking about my old neighbor, Helen. She used to say retirement was like being handed a blank book. Every day was a fresh page, and she got to decide what story it would tell. At first, that freedom thrilled her, but after a while, she told me, some days, I just stare at that blank page and don't know what to write. If you've ever felt that way, here's what I've learned. The most fulfilling retirements aren't about filling every page. They're about writing the story that feels true to you. Today, we're going to talk about how to do just that, with some final thoughts on finding real joy and purpose in these golden years. Let's start with something that might surprise you: slowing down. Now, I don't mean sitting still, I mean savoring. We spent so much of our lives rushing from one thing to the next that we forgot how good it feels to truly be present. Retirement gives us that gift back. Take gardening, for example. My friend Ray used to joke that he attacked his garden in and out in 20 minutes flat. But after he retired, he discovered the joy of puttering. Now he spends hours out there, not because he has to, but because he loves noticing how the morning light hits the tomato leaves, or how the herbs smell different after a summer rain. That's not wasting time, that's living. And that brings me to something equally important: letting go of should. How many of us have thought, I should travel more, or I should be more productive, only to feel guilty when we don't? Here's the truth. Your retirement doesn't have to look like anyone else's. If you're happiest puttering in the workshop all day, that's perfect. If you'd rather sit on the porch with a good book than tour Europe, that's perfect too. This is your time, finally, to do what feels right for you. Now, let's talk about legacy, but not in the heavy, formal way you might be thinking. I'm talking about the everyday legacy we all leave, often without realizing it. Like the way my Aunt Betty always made sure to remember everyone's birthdays, or how my old barber, Joe, could make anyone feel like the most interesting person in the room with just a few questions. Those small kindnesses ripple out further than we'll ever know. One of the most beautiful things about this stage of life is that we get to decide what matters most, and then pour our energy into that. For some, it's family. For others, it's a cause they believe in. For many, it's simply being the person who makes others feel seen and valued. There's no hierarchy here. The cashier who remembers your name matters just as much as the CEO in the grand scheme of things. Here's something else I've noticed about people who truly thrive in retirement. They've made peace with aging. Now, that doesn't mean they like every ache and wrinkle. Who does? But they've stopped fighting the calendar and started appreciating what each year brings. My friend Sarah puts it best. I've earned every one of these gray hairs, and I'm not about to apologize for them. There's a certain freedom that comes when we stop trying to be who we were at 40 and start embracing who we are now. Maybe we move a little slower, but we see more. Maybe we don't remember names as quickly, but we understand people better. These aren't losses. They're just different kinds of strengths. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought. Retirement isn't a destination. It's a journey. Some days will feel full and purposeful. Others might feel quiet or uncertain. That's okay. The beauty is that every morning brings a new chance to discover what makes your heart sing. So, here's my challenge to you. This week, try one small thing that feels meaningful to you. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you've been meaning to call, starting that project you've been putting off, or simply taking time to watch the sunset without rushing. Notice how it feels. That right there, that's the joy we've been talking about. Before I go, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one thing that's brought you unexpected joy in retirement? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this video resonated with you, why not share it with a friend who might be figuring out their own retirement journey? Remember, this isn't the end of your story. It's a brand new chapter, and you get to write it exactly how you want. Here's to finding purpose, joy, and countless beautiful moments in the years ahead. After all, you've earned them. Take care.